Whew. Embodying peace. That's what we get to do, folks, right? We get to embody joy, delight, to be such an example that other people are attracted to the beauty of Jesus Christ, to beloved community that can be, right? All right, up next, we have Keyona Osborne. Keyona is the co-founder of It Ends Now Charlotte and serves on the planning committee for the Charlotte Justice Conference. When not urging Christians to lead the way in global justice reform, Keyona works full-time at C-Space as the head of DEI think tank, working to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion into the research and insights of brands and businesses. Let's give her a warm welcome, friends.
All right. I wasn't sure if people would be left. I'm the last one to go. So thanks for staying. I didn't find out until today that I was last, so my slides were prepared for anything. And so I really appreciate all the speakers that went before me. We were all asked to explore this question: what does a healthy and relevant church look like today? And I think that all of the speakers actually did a really good job of unpacking that and helping us to really reflect and realize that we know what it doesn't look like, right? It doesn't look like where we are today. So what I'd like to do briefly and then spend more time on after is first start with defining a few words just to make sure we're all on the same page. Because some of you might be sitting in here thinking, okay, well, their church isn't healthy, or that situation, that city, that person isn't healthy and relevant, but maybe that doesn't apply to me. And so I'd just like to explore this a little bit. I'd like to explore the words healthy, relevant, and church, just to make sure we're all on the same page. And then I've got some uplifting, a way forward for all of us, because we already know that the answer is it's not present state. So let's start with that word church. In the New Testament, the word church is the English translation for the Greek word ekklesia. Ekklesia means assembly, so we know that a church is a group of something, right? And so what I noticed in the New Testament is that Paul uses the word ekklesia quite often, but Jesus actually uses it too. And that's what I want to focus on, right? Because Jesus is who we're following and who we want to make sure that our definition is modeled after. So in the book of Matthew, Jesus' words, he says, "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church," ekklesia, "and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." So we know that Jesus is building a church. He's building it on a person, and the gates of Hades are going to try to overcome it, but it's not going to work. All right, so not enough context, I don't think. So let's take a look at the book of Mark. Mark is referring to Jesus when he says, "We heard him say, I will destroy the temple," not ekklesia, temple, "that is made with hands, and within 3 days I will build another made without hands." So now we're in, after Christ, the church after Christ. So we know that within 3 days means Jesus died and rose. So that is what he did to build this church. We know that a church is an assembly. He's building it on Peter. He destroyed one temple to build another temple. So I think a safe assumption for today is that the definition of the word church is an assembly of Christ's followers who are saved from sin by Christ's death and resurrection. Everyone with me still? No disagreement? All right. So that's a church. Let's define the word relevant. Relevant, Merriam-Webster's dictionary, you can check me on this, no motive here. Having significant and demonstrable bearing on the matter at hand. Significant, demonstrable. Okay, those words make sense. Big, obvious. What is the matter at hand, though? And I actually don't need to spend a ton of time on this because our mental health panel talked about this. All of our speakers talked about it. Charlotte's Princess, she talked about it, right? There are a lot of matters at hand, and I don't know how big the screen is if you can see this, but Pew Research Center does a study every year that wants to know what are the biggest problems facing our country, according to American adults. The top 5 were inflation, affordability of healthcare, violent crime, gun violence, and the federal budget deficit. And then, like Charlotte's Princess talked about, we see that from kids ages 12 to 25, the rate of people saying that they've experienced a major depressive episode has more than doubled in the last 10 years. Doubled, right? That's a 100% increase. So we've got things like depression, inflation, all of that are at hand. So I think we can define relevant as having significant and demonstrable bearing on the matter at hand: inflation, affordable health care, violent crime, mental health treatment, and the additional prevalent concerns of others. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. I think you see where I'm going. But let's define healthy. All right, Merriam-Webster again says healthy means showing physical, mental, or emotional well-being. Physical, body, mental, brain, emotions, those things that we feel somewhere. But what exactly is well-being, being well? It's actually defined as the state of being happy, healthy, or prosperous. Well, we all learned in grade school that you can't define a word with a word, right? So we'll eliminate healthy. I don't really know what being physically happy looks like, so we'll eliminate that too. And so coincidentally, I swear I didn't plan this. You can look this up on Merriam-Webster. We're left with the word prosperous. We all, as Christians, we love that word prosperous, don't we? Jeremiah 29:11, you all can say it with me. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you. So we know that God wants us to prosper. So this actually works out perfectly, right? So healthy means showing physical, mental, or emotional prosperity. All right, so those are the 3 definitions I'm working off of. I think those apply really well to what we heard so far today. So, what is a healthy and relevant church? You all agreed with me on these 3 definitions, so I'm just putting them together. A healthy and relevant church is a physically, mentally, and emotionally prosperous assembly of Christ followers who are saved from sin by Christ's death and resurrection and have significant and demonstrable bearing on the prevalent concerns of others. Ooh, that's a tough pill to swallow. So that's a healthy and relevant church. Well, the first thing I'm going to look at is prosperous. And JB, Melinda, the rest of C4 talked about the fact that the church, the number of people who identify as Christian, the number of people who identify as Christ followers, saved from sin by Christ's death and resurrection, is declining. Declining isn't prospering. So we're not a healthy church. Are we relevant? Are we significant and demonstrable? Okay, significant, yes. There's another favorite scripture that we like to quote. God can do exceedingly abundantly beyond all that we can ask or imagine, right? So, yes, God, the church, has significant bearing on the prevalent concerns of others. But have we demonstrated that? Is that obvious, evident, demonstrable to the things that people are concerned about? People are concerned about inflation. People are concerned about the cost of their health care. People are thinking about committing suicide. Have we shown that Jesus has a significant bearing on those things? So it's easy to say, I'm up here too, and I'm like, man, well, that's everybody else. I don't identify as that, right? And I'm millennial. My generation, we like to say, we like to define how we identify, right? But we're a part of that assembly, right? Regardless of whether our actions match other actions. We talked up here about, Republicans being the representation of Christianity, but regardless, we're all an assembly. So we're accountable to each other. So, now that we've gotten that out of the way, I think the room agrees. We know what a healthy and relevant church is. We know that we're not one. How can we become one? All right, and that's what I want to leave here with, because I think we're in a room full of leaders, we're in a room full of people who want that to happen, who want the church to be healthy and relevant. So my first to do, and these are going to be really easy, so you can memorize them and take them back and tell other people and make sure that the whole church, the whole assembly is on board with these things. First is show empathy. I watched a video one time that talked about the difference between empathy and sympathy. And it showed that empathy is if you see someone in a hole, you get in the hole with them. And it talked about sympathy where you kind of go, whoa, that's deep. You okay down there? Empathy is actually getting in there. You're in a hole, I'm in a hole. You're dirty, I'm dirty. You're hurt, I'm hurt. Right? And now that we're in this hole together, we're going to figure out how to get out. Helms just talked about it. She's never been evicted, but she knows people that have been evicted. She loves people who have been evicted, so now she's empathizing so that she can make sure that that's resolved. I think if we resolve this, if we can check the box on this one, I think the next two will be easy. All right, so show empathy. That's what Jesus did. We all say we follow Jesus. Jesus, who was without sin, was able to empathize with sinners. We're sinners. We should easily be able to empathize with sinners. Okay, so 1, show empathy to become a healthy and relevant church. 2, walk alongside. All right, we can't just get in the hole and then get ourselves out and tell the other person behind us, oh, okay, this is what I did to get out. Right? We should be getting out together. So we show empathy first, and then we walk alongside. We make sure that we're feeling the progress that the person is making too, right? So we got in that hole, but we also want to feel that success of getting out. All right, so this is a good part. We don't just want to distance ourselves. I don't know if any of you will admit to this, but when I was in elementary school, I don't know if I said it or if I had friends who said this, but they would go, we don't like her anymore, right? We, making a decision for me, just because we're friends, we're affiliates, we're associated with each other. And I think that's what this is, walking alongside, really recognizing that, like, because you're in it, I'm in it too. All right, and the last one is act on behalf of. No one wants a friend or a mentor who acknowledges them behind closed doors and then denies them in public. Right? And so, talked about this on stage earlier. People got signs in their yard that say Black Lives Matter, but are you showing that Black Lives Matter? Are you there at the protests? Are you there at the local government hearings? Are you there voting for new policies that show that Black Lives Matter? Mental health. You say that you care about people who are suffering from mental illness. But when you find out that someone's struggling, that someone is thinking about suicide, Are you walking alongside them during that? Are you checking in? Someone that's worried about losing their home, healthcare debt, right? There's all these things that the people around us are worried about. Pew Research Center showed us. But we've got to walk alongside these people. We can't just kind of give advice from afar and then go back to our normal lives. So I believe if we check the box on these three things, right? Super easy. I hope they're easy to remember. Show empathy, walk alongside, act on behalf of. We become a healthy and relevant church. And so here's my challenge to all of you. I want all of you to think about one sin that you've struggled with personally. Because that's the easiest way to show empathy, right? For those of you who are advanced, think about 5 sins. Think about a sin that maybe you don't struggle with. But for us beginners, think about one sin you struggle with and find people who are struggling with that too. And show them empathy, extend them empathy, get back in the hole with them because you know you'll get out. You already got out once. So show empathy to those people, walk alongside those people. Don't just say, oh, praise God, yep, I was delivered from that. How? Walk them through it. We know that it's not possible to just go from sin and struggling to, oh, I'm great. There's a process. So walk alongside those people who are struggling with what you once struggled with. And then act on behalf of them. And that doesn't always mean some handout. It can. If it's not going to hurt you, why not? Some of us are just living frivolously, spending money on cars and extra land, and while there's people who are dying. I remember giving a talk one time and are we the Good Samaritan or are we the priest and the person passing by? We've got to act on behalf of the people that we've shown empathy with and walked alongside of. Advocate for them in politics or financially, at work, at school. For those of you that are church leaders or leaders of another ministry, I want to take it one step further. One, I want you to issue this same challenge to your congregants, whoever you lead. But 2, I want you to take a look at your systems in your organization. Right? Because it's one thing to form a relationship with a person and show them empathy, walk alongside them, act on behalf of. But do the systems and policies at your church enable your congregants to do that? Do they enable congregants to show empathy, walk alongside of, act on behalf of? Or do they enable congregants to show up on Sunday, sit down, go back home? Show up on Wednesday, sit down, come back home. I think it's crazy that some churches require you to be a member in order to be a part of certain ministries. If I don't identify as a member of the church and I need help with my mental health, why do I need to become a member to get help? So let's evaluate those systems and let's be honest with ourselves, right? Helms talked about that self-reflection. Even our MC talked about how sometimes we want to resist that urge. We want to not resist the urge. We want to resist that feeling of sitting in something difficult. Sit in it. It's okay. Because we're all we're all guilty. I'm up here talking, but I'm guilty. So let's be honest about the systems that we've set in place and let's come up with new ones. Let's start by saying, okay, how can we create a system that shows empathy, that gets in the hole instead of looking down at the hole and evaluating how terrible it is? So challenge your congregants to pick a sin that they struggle with, show empathy, walk alongside, act on behalf of. Evaluate your systems, the ministries that you offer. I'll tell you a story. I struggle with mental health. And I was actually at a time in my life where I wasn't quite sure if I identified as Christian anymore, but it was how I was raised, so it was where I went by default. And so I was like, okay, I at least want to try to resolve this through Christ. And I go online and I'm looking up different organizations that are like ministries for mental health. And I found one. I don't know if you all know, but Charlotte has, I think, about 1,000 churches, give or take. When I looked up churches that offer this ministry, there were 5. And the closest one to me was 20 minutes away, even though we're in a city of 1,000 churches. Imagine the people who are not looking for a church solution like me. So I think we can do it, y'all. I think we can be a healthy and relevant church. Do you all think we can? Well, let's do it. Let's be a healthy and relevant church, not just today, but until Jesus returns. Thank you.